you were at the epicentre of one of the biggest music stories in this country.
I've often heard Alex Ferguson say, when we saw him in their white suits, we knew. I mean, that's nonsense. Noel Gallagher was in the hotel, and I remember him saying, what were you thinking about wearing those suits? I'll never forget it. But he was spot on, you know what I mean? And we just became best mates. As much as football, it was music that sort of brought us together as well. He said he came downstairs, he said, Dad, I couldn't believe it. You and Ed Sheeran, arm in arm, and you've got MTV on singing Luther Vandross. And I'd always be able to know exactly where my parents were. And even that, talking about it makes me a bit emotional. So yeah, it's it's a beautiful song.
Jamie, it's so good to see you, and thank you for joining us on Football, Music and Me. Now, as we all know, you had a fabulous career. Bournemouth, Liverpool, Tottenham, finished at Southampton, 17 caps for England. You were part of that fantastic Euro 96 squad. You're now one of the foremost pundits and have been for a long time on Sky and, well, a league of their own. It's just absolutely sensational. But what a lot of us don't know about you is the music in your life. So unusually, I don't want to ask you about football today. It's all about the music.
That'll do me.
So probably the easiest way to start is when you were growing up, around the house, what sort of music did you hear? What were Harry and Sandra listening to?
I think it'll probably surprise a lot of people when I say that Dad was a real soul man.
Really?
He loved his soul music, yeah, and certainly Mum. And when we spoke about doing this podcast, I actually called Dad up and I said, just let's go through a few memories for it. And growing up it was very much Motown. It was soul. It was Luther Vandross. It was that sort of soul background, and that's what we always had on. When we were getting in the car. And my first real memory of music was actually when Dad was the manager of Bournemouth. One of the directors at the club at the time was a guy called Dave Smith, and his son, I can't remember his name, but he was involved in the music industry. Now, Dave was a real larger-than-life character, and they had a recording studio at their house. So Dad, being the music lover that he was, we used to go round there and we'd spend hours. So Mark and I, my brother, he just had this amazing house. I remember it now. Like, he was the first one to get like a Pac-Man arcade in the house. Like, he was very wealthy, but he was very generous with his time. So Dad would go over there and make tapes, so mixtapes of things, and so then we'd always be able to play it in the car. Yeah, with
I'm
Dave
staggered.
Smith. Honestly, so we'd listen to soul music, and as I say, it was always Motown. It was the Jacksons. There was always that feel of it. It was never anything else. It was never really, it was never into rock and roll. I guess the Rolling Stones a little bit, but it was always predominantly soul, and that's when my first memories of, and I luckily enough I actually got to meet Luther Vandross once. We were in, I was only about 20, 21 years of age. I've been dating a girl, and so I came down to London, and I took her for some pre-drinks. We went to the Dorchester Hotel, and I'll never forget it. I walked in, and I could see, oh my God, that's Luther Vandross, and I do get starstruck sometimes. I love seeing famous people, and I saw Luther, and I'm like, and he used to really fluctuate. I don't know if you remember, bless him, like God,
his weight.
His weight. He could go from being super slim, or he'd put on a little bit of weight. And he in this period, he looked really well. He was with his partner, and I remember thinking, shall I go and say hello to him? And at the time, I was playing for just starting to break into the England squad, and I thought, I've got to go and say hello. And I was just hoping. They always say never meet your heroes. I walked over there, and it was very quiet that evening. And I said, Luther, I just want to say hi. Your life, your songs meant so much to me and my family growing up. And I'm such a fan. And he was like, man, it's really nice to meet you. It's bad Luther impression there. But I said, it's so nice to meet you.
Did he know anything about football at all?
I didn't even tell him.
You just said I'm a fan. You didn't say I'm a footballer.
I'm a huge fan. And growing up, your words, your voice, your tone, because he's even now, one of the greatest musicians. His voice and the way that all his words meant so much to people. It was lovely to me, and he was a real gentleman as well, Geoff.
Honestly, I'm looking forward to hearing about your taste. I'm staggered about Harry because soul is very mellow and very Well, it is soulful.
Well, Motown as well, like Marvin Gaye and things like that. But there's a real rhythm. There's such great songs. And if you go through I love hip hop, and going even now the samples that they use, like Marvin Gaye's been sampled so many times in different songs from people. So there is there is elements to it where that Motown music does come through in so many different aspects of modern day music, because they were so good with how they used the beats and everything that went with it.
Of course, the bulk of your career was at Liverpool. When you got there, when you first arrived there, what were your thoughts on moving to such a huge club as that? And also, at the time, what were your musical influences there?
Well, growing up in Bournemouth, I mean, we weren't exactly, coming straight out of Compton, but we had a
that's an understatement.
We had a group of guys there. So a couple of my mates, Dean Giddins, I'll give him a name check because Dino's still one of my best mates now. We used to listen to at that time, I was 16, 17, NWA had just come out. Stetson Sonic, NWA, trying to think, other brilliant groups that were just sort of changing how hip hop was. Because, in that era, we listened to it, we loved it, and that's how we used to just go. When all the lads would come over from Ireland or from East London to come down to Bournemouth, they had like digs where they stayed called the Highland Hotel. So we'd all go there and we'd just hang out for a while. I was only sort of 16, so we could go. There's a place called Madison's actually in Bournemouth. I had the fake ID and I used to get in there, but that was upstairs in there. Downstairs was like house music and upstairs was hip hop. So we'd always go up there and just used to listen to, we'd say to the DJ, who normally my brother's mate was a bit older than me, and he would go, we want Rapper's Delight on or whatever. And Rapper's Delight was always the song. When that came on, everyone used to go mad. And it was just, that was a big part of it growing up in that. And so when I went up to Liverpool, it was the same sort of thing really. But I think I became a bit more soulful as I went to Liverpool, like Ralph Tresvant and Belle Biv DeVoe, a bit more, R&B music. And I remember putting on my music in the coach once. And
that's quite a big move as well.
It was too big a move, really.
How did it go?
I put it on, Jan Mulby said to me, "Get that music off right now." I think the song.
Or words to that effect.
Yeah, I think I sat next to John Barnes, and John went, I put some. I think I had a tape that I listened to on my Walkman at the time. I think they were called, and it was. I think it might have been Belle Biv DeVoe or something like that. Poison, and they were like, "Get this off."
Bit too bold.
A bit too bold.
Did you, when you went to that dressing room, were you influenced by any of their musical tastes? Or can you remember at the time, did you have a music box in the dressing room?
No, we weren't allowed at Liverpool. First time I ever saw that actually with a team that came to Anfield was Wimbledon. Because they had the
Crazy Gang.
Yeah, the Crazy Gang. They used to have the beatbox and they'd be going really, that was something that came into but then as it got on towards sort of the end of my career, it certainly did. We were never really allowed music. But I did one thing when I moved to Liverpool, the one thing it definitely made me fall in love with was the Beatles. The Beatles played a massive influence, because I used to go to Cavern Walks all the time, so where obviously they first started, and there was a great coffee shop there. We used to have chocolate fudge cake, me and Don Hutchison. And I remember thinking about it now, I'd always see Don. Don was sort of 9 stone wet through. And when I was like 18, I'd look at myself in pictures, I'm a bit jowly. I think, no wonder I used to have the chocolate fudge cake in Lucy in the Sky. This lovely Marie at Lucy in the Sky. We used to go in there, have a coffee and a big chocolate fudge cake after a toasted cheese sandwich or something. But that was always, then I started to go, okay, you walk in there, they'd be playing like Hey Jude or whatever, and all the music from the Beatles. And I sort of slowly but surely went, okay, they're genius, these guys.
Has that stayed with you? Are you still a Beatles fan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, every time, even now, the fact that they've had a number one, it's gone, I know it's with AI, but it just shows you the importance of what the Beatles did. And it's so, so clever. Every song, it's so easy to sing along with, and so, the melody's always so good, and yeah, just super talented guys that their worlds collided.
Did you ever use music? And we see players now coming in with headphones. They didn't so much in the older days, players as much. But did you ever use music, whether it's on your way into training or on the coach on the way there, to get yourself kind of in the right frame of mind, in the zone, if you like?
A little bit, but as I say, we never had it in our. I would love to have had sort of at Liverpool when you could have music or whatever. But it's.
But what about personally? Even say if it's before say you were in digs at Liverpool or you're in a hotel for an away game, would you ever put on music to get yourself in the right frame of mind?
Yeah, I think so. Something that's because I feel as much as it's getting you in the right state of mind. It's almost taking your mind away from what you've got coming up, because I used to get very nervous before games.
Really?
Yeah, terribly. Yeah, I almost make myself feel ill. Yeah, it was a horrible feeling. Yeah, which is not, but a lot of players do. You know, sometimes I even find myself being physically sick. You know, at Anfield before a game, because it's. You know, when I think about it now, it's almost stupid, the fact that I got like that. But it was something that just, you know, but once the game started, I was great. You know, I felt fine. You get your first touch away. But yeah, I think if we'd have had, you know, a bit of music in the dressing room before, and it might have actually just calmed those nerves, because sometimes that's the big thing when you hear people and you're like, well, who wants this song on? And it becomes like a little bit of a DJ thing, and everyone has their own favourite music to listen to. Then it becomes a bit more relaxing, I guess. That's why a lot of teams have it, just to calm the nerves.
Well, it's funny now, isn't it? Because we have a far greater understanding. You've been a brilliant supporter for a long, long time of Legends of Football. As you know, we raise money for music therapy for Nordoff and Robbins. And what you've described there is exactly what it is. It's music therapy. You're feeling overwrought, you're anxious, and you put on music to calm your brain down, that anxious part. So that was music therapy all those years ago.
Exactly. And that's where everyone has their own thing. When I get in the car now, I always love listening to music. And I've got three boys now. Two of my older boys, 19 and 16, I love to hear what they listen to, and, you know, educating in the new, something like Drake's obviously the new sort of hip hop style, whatever, or Dave or Jack Harlow, I think now the other one they're introducing me to. But there's the music that I listen to, and it's funny how it sort of transmits to you, because they like that sort of beat that I like listening to. So I suppose when they were younger, listening to when I was sort of 3 or 4, like I'd be in the house or putting it on in the car, they carry that on, if you like, and they still like the same sort of music as I do.
Is there any music that you particularly associate with any part of your career? So we talked about Bournemouth in the early days. But say, you know, it could be when you reached a final with Liverpool, or you did something, you know, with England, Euro 96. You think back, I remember that night, and we were playing that. We were playing this.
We won the League Cup, Liverpool. John Barnes was playing Rapper's Delight.
When was the first time you heard him do the full Rapper's Delight?
That was probably it. And then because I liked it, I joined in with him. I think I caught him by surprise that I knew the words. I didn't do it as well as he did. But no, that was good. Robbie Williams as well. I think Robbie spent a bit of time up in Liverpool with me. When Robbie left Take That, he was having a bit of a difficult time, but he knew a couple of my mates. So Phil Babb and Robbie Fowler knew Robbie. So we went over to see him on tour with Take That. They were over playing in Milan. We had a weekend off. So Robbie Fowler, Phil Babb and myself flew over there to watch him. And at the time, Eternal was supporting them, so my ex-wife was there, so I didn't know her at the time. But Robbie said to me, come over and see us. And we're like, great. So we flew over, and he was such a great character, Robbie. And then after about 6 months, we really got to know him and kept in touch. And then he ends up leaving Take That, and I'll never forget it. I got a phone call. I'm trying to think, do we have mobile phones in those days? Where he called me, because I was living with a family in Sandfield Park, which is about 5 minutes from the Liverpool training ground. And he said, look, I need to get out of London. I've got so much going on. I said, can I see you? I was like, yeah, of course. So I can't remember if he got a car or a train up. He ends up in Liverpool, and he said, look, can I stay with you guys? You know, I live with a family. He said, I'm just about to leave Take That. And I was like, okay, and this is big news, mate. He went, yeah, no, but I need to get out of London. So he came and stayed in my house while all this went on, all the chaos, just to almost hide.
Oh my days!
So I know
you were at the epicenter of one of the biggest music stories in this country for decades.
Yeah, absolutely. And because he was going through a tough time, and I think I probably didn't understand at that time, and I've got to know it and understand it more, which I think we will talk about. That Robbie was, finding it difficult, a lot of pressure on him. He was a superstar, the star of the band, and he just decided I wanted out. One of the last things just before he'd gone, it was the big song at the time was "I Want You Back," which was huge, and it was a great song. And I remember him sitting there in the car, and he said, "Because you come to the training ground with us." He came to Liverpool, and Roy Evans would invite him onto the bus. We played Aston Villa
on the bus.
He came on the bus to
Robbie
the Aston
Williams
Villa
was on
game.
the Liverpool first team bus for a game.
Absolutely, yeah. And even in that time, when he was staying at our house, so Don Hutchison and I, we were good mates with him and Phil Babb. So we took him into town, and we ended up there was this area where they used to do, I can't think of the road now, but they used to do a lot of karaoke. So we went along, we're having a couple of drinks with Rob, and there was a karaoke. Robbie loves karaoke. So he said, I'm getting up. I said, Bob, I don't think it's a good idea. You're meant to be like, incognito.
Trying to keep it on the low.
But there was no social media then. You can imagine, can't you? Anyway, he gets up on the karaoke and he's belting out like some great song. Not one of his, but a beautiful song. He sounds amazing. This old boy came up to me, he went, he's good here, man. Is he your mate? I went, yeah. So he's got a chance, and he went, cool, he could go right to the top, this lad. He got Robbie Williams. He was like that. I went, right, come over here, Bob. So we got him back, and he was just, it was a mad time. But that was sort of a, and then he ended up coming to Marbella with us. The whole team went, and Robbie came and spent, I think someone pulled out of the trip. So Robbie said, I'll come with you guys. So there's John Barnes, myself, all the Steve McMahon, Robbie Fowler, and Robbie. And by the time the press found out, Sinatra's in Marbella,
yes,
in the bars there, and by the time they'd found out that we'd already left, so we were in there for 3 or 4 days. But he was great fun. One of the kindest souls I've ever met. He's an amazing guy, Robbie. He's had it tough, and I think with that genius, sometimes it's and I think that's what a lot of musicians and footballers get on so well, because they gravitate toward. I'm not calling myself a genius here, by the way, but a lot of the other guys that I played with were. But so they had that sort of that feeling together.
Well, no, I was actually going to ask you, do you see parallels between the life of a footballer and the life of a musician, in that the pressures that you're under? I mean, there's pressures in all sorts of...
Well, we want to be them and they want to be us. There's a lot of that.
That's a slightly different thing, but they are, even if they're in a band, they're solo artists. You played in a team, but you've got to perform, and it's about having confidence, it's about always being at the top of your game, etc. Do you see the parallels between football and musicians as careers?
Yeah, absolutely. You see the pressures. They're great pressures, don't get me wrong. Pressure is trying to pay bills for your family. That's real pressure.
Pressure is being a single mum in a top floor flat and the lift's broken and no money. That's pressure.
But if you talk about relative terms of when you've been given something, you're so lucky that you've worked hard to do, and you want to become a footballer or a musician, and you get to the top. That becomes like, people want your time. They feel like they own you, and I think that's something that some people deal with different. I was so fortunate that I had a sort of an incredible start-up with my dad, because he just was great with people. When I was younger, I see people like Bobby Moore, and they made me understand what it's like to treat people. How if people are nice to you, people come up and want a bit of your time. If it means signing a few autographs, you just do it. I was just brought up that way, and that's why I found it hard with me. With some people don't do that, or some players, musicians, whatever. But Robbie in that way was very unique. He was good with people. He always had time. But as I say, I'm not talking out of turn. He knows it. He's mentioned it. He had his demons, and it was hard for him.
Oh, massively.
And I think he enjoyed being around us, because he knew I didn't want anything from him. I didn't want any money from him. I didn't want any time. I just wanted to try and be a mate to him. And I had no idea, even in those days, what it was like with mental health and what he might have been going through. I was just trying to be a mate. And there was a spare place at my digs with Alan and Janet, who were the nicest people in the world. And Janet was the best cook in Liverpool. So he was getting some great food while he was going through all this, obviously this massive change in his life.
Did they reckon, I've heard you speak about them so warmly, so fondly before, but did you say, my mate's coming to stay, and in walks Robbie Williams?
Yeah, it was pretty much like that. But it was pretty much like that all the time. The players used to come, to my digs. There was probably a few parties that we probably shouldn't have had. But there was mad. They lived in there. This house, to be honest, Geoff, was like in the middle of Liverpool, in a place called Anfield Park, and they were relatively wealthy. Graham Souness introduced me to them, but they had an indoor swimming pool in Liverpool. But this wasn't just an indoor swimming pool; it had a wave machine.
What?
I swear.
Now, when people talk about players in digs, I'm thinking of a little old lady running a B&B.
Oh yeah, my digs was the Carlsberg of all digs. Yeah, if Carlsberg could do digs.
How many pool parties did you have?
Oh, there was a few, but let's not go there.
What were you playing? What were the bangers?
What
were you pushing out?
Well, I can't even remember, Bill. But
Bear in mind the sort of player you were, so you could look after yourself, but you were known as a passer of the ball as well, and you could shoot from distance. What is there a type of music or a musician that would embody you as a player?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I don't know. I'll come back to that one.
What
Yeah.
or who is it going to be?
Yeah. I mean, I loved it. I don't know if you ever saw the thing with Zidane when they put ballet, they sort
Yes.
of did like a balletic
Yep,
music.
an
with it.
aria, yep.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm like that, by the way, but I did love that. I thought that was such an amazing thing because there was no words, nothing else, just music. But he was like a ballerina the way that he played football and so poetic the way he moved. But I don't know. I mean, as I say, with music it played such a huge part. But I wouldn't say there's anyone, like Wonderwall, things like that, different songs, go up to Manchester and areas.
Yeah, you were part of that scene. It was Britpop, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was the Manchester scene. It was the Spice Girls,
Yeah.
as well at the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. We used to sort of spend. I remember that not getting to know a few of the Spice Girls, and Sporty Spice would always come to Liverpool games. She was a great girl.
Mel's
Baby
proper
Spice.
Liverpool fan as well,
yeah,
isn't she?
really cool, really nice girl. And I mean, unfortunately, we got the nickname off the back of it, which wasn't ideal. But it wasn't, you know what I mean? How you dressed that up? That nickname would have been unbelievable if we'd have won titles. I'd have been self-proclaimed. I'd have been Sporty Spice, anything, Scary Spice, whatever you wanted me to be, Posh Spice even. But no, it was
You hated it at the time.
yeah,
didn't
we
you?
hated it because it became such a derogatory term about people not being a success, not caring, and it became like we were these guys who were
Care
earning
about
load
image.
load of money. I was at the time, dating, married to a pop
Singer,
star
model.
so
Yep.
it became difficult for me. And one thing that I always prided myself on was my work ethic. Even now, I try my best at everything I do, and it's something I instill in my kids. So I didn't want it ever to become like the narrative with me. So, and the more you spoke about it, the more it got brought up. So I actually learned a lesson that the less you say about things, the less people can talk about it. Well, at the time, it was quite difficult, Bill, because we were successful, we were doing well as a team, but it became, if it wasn't, let's be honest, we weren't for Man United and Alex Ferguson, we'd have won a load of titles, but we just wasn't meant to be. It wasn't because we were I used to see Ryan Giggs, I used to see a lot of the Man United lads out. David Beckham was out all the time, but we probably the same amount as we were, but they ended up winning and we didn't. That was the difference.
I think what actually ramped it up 10 times was the famous cup final suits, wasn't it?
Yeah, minging.
Now, you were probably one of the most stylish members of the squad. Did you not step in and say, fellas?
I was a baby, Geoff. I was 21 years of age. Like, we had John Barnes, Ian Rush, manager. And we beaten Man United twice. We drew there and we beat them at home. And I felt we were confident. Wasn't really thinking about what suits we were wearing. But if I had my time now and I was 28, I would have definitely said, look, we don't. We had a club suit. We should just worn that. But people say, who was to blame? The truth is, everyone was to blame, because someone actually should have said, no, we're not doing this. It was just a ridiculous decision at the time. And I've often heard Alex Ferguson say, when we saw him in their white suits, we knew. I mean, that's nonsense, because the truth is it was a really bad game. And if anything, and I'm fair in how I assess games, we were marginally the better teams. It was just won by a bit of brilliance by Eric Cantona. But it was... it wasn't our greatest. And after that game, funny enough, we went back to the team motel and all my family were there. And I was thinking, I was going to have a couple of... And Noel Gallagher was in the hotel. And I remember him saying, what were you thinking about wearing those suits? I'll never forget it. But he was spot on, you know what I mean? Because he was gutty, because he's obviously a City fan.
Did you think at the time, if even he's saying that,
yeah,
we might have got that one wrong?
Yeah, we got it wrong, all right. But it wasn't, it was just it was a joint decision. David James at the time was modelling for Armani, and I like JMO, and I wouldn't be because sometimes when people, books or thing, they start, changing the story. We all should have been strong enough as a team to said, this isn't right. We look like ice cream sellers. Let's not wear this suit. And if we lose, we're going to... But I just think we were just confident. We were a good team. And that really was the thing, and after that was obviously Euro 96. So that was when, off the back of that, we did take a lot of stick, and it took a little bit of, coming back after that, to be honest.
What was that like being, unfortunately, not for the first time, a fantastic football journey of yours was cut short due to injury, but being part of the Euro 96 squad and that whole Skinner and Medill, football's coming up, the Lightning Seeds, being part of
I'm in the
that.
video.
Yeah, I know.
Somehow, I don't know how I got on it. It was because that was probably
They filmed it at Bisham Abbey, didn't they?
That's right. But it was the favourite time. I can honestly say, after losing that cup final was as low as I've ever felt as a footballer. You know, I felt so disappointed, you know, with the performance and not winning, and we got so much stick after it. So then we went away to China. We did, you know, we went away. Now it was actually a good.
I was on that trip.
Was you on that trip? Did you come to the Great Wall with us?
Yep.
So we went to so I remember doing that because that was a crazy day because I was sort of 50-50 to get in the Euro 96 squad because I'd started the season great, missed a chunk of it I broke my ankle playing against, who was it? No, sorry, I tore my hamstring. I can't remember who we were playing against, but it was so I missed about 6 months of that season, 5-6 months, and I came back towards the end of it, got in the team for the cup final, and obviously then we ended up losing that, and then I got picked for the 20 no, it might be about 28 players I think he took to China, so we went to China and it was a good trip, and I was training well and I felt sharp, and then I wasn't due to play. I think Rob Lee at the time had a really good season, better season than I'd had, you know, throughout the year. But I think he was ill or something like that. So I ended up playing against China the day after we visited the Great Wall, and I played great. I played really well, and Gazza and I really hit it off in midfield. And I think I made Terry Venables go, okay, this guy can, you know, he's what we need because. My ego, when I played, I was like, get it to you know, I knew I could play, but if there's someone better than me, like Paul Gascoigne had more ability than I did, more ability than most people who never played the game. So I would just go, right, yeah, Gazza, you go and look good, and I'll just keep giving it to you. And the team really clicked. I think we won 5-6-0, whatever it was. And I remember saying to me after you're in the squad. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. And he was going to name the squad, and I'd gone from probably not being in it, if Rob Lee hadn't been ill, to being in it. And then with that night, that was when we went to the China jump and the dentist chair in Hong Kong, which wasn't obviously one of our greatest moments as an England player. But I'll tell you what, though, one of the great nights. I tell you what, if I could go back for one night, I think that was it. Honestly, it was one of the great. And I know if there is any England lads that when they're in that squad, listen to this, they will remember it. It just had everything that night. It was Terry Venables was the manager, and he said to us, lads, you know, it's Gazza's birthday, you know. Do me a favour, go out, be sensible. And we were like, yeah, of course, Gaffer. He said, no problem. He said, look, and to make sure you are, I'm going to send Brian Robson out with you. And I was like, okay. So I'm a young lad, I'm going, all I knew was Brian Robson was one of the all-time great players, but also great drinkers. So Gazza and a few of the senior boys were like, listen, we've got one job, get a couple of drinks down Robbo, it's all off. So next thing, Robbo was having a few drinks, and now it's game on. And then Gazza spotted the dentist chair, and he was like, "What's that thing?" And someone behind the bar said, "Well, you go in there, and they pour tequila and vodka down your neck, and then you just start drinking." Yeah, and then all of a sudden, chaos ensued. But what we didn't realise were that the guys behind the bar had cameras. You know, in those days, it wasn't so much social media; they had them, and then they sold them. You know, which was, I mean, they're scumbags for doing that. But I'm probably saying that more because I'm so disappointed when I see those great photos of Teddy Sheringham and Gazza and Robbie Fowler that got in the dentist chair. They didn't take one of me, so that's why they're scumbags.
You kept your good boy image
at the time.
How much was it for them not to take your picture?
Oh, I don't know. At the time, I remember my dad saying, "You're lucky you ain't in those photos," and I was like, "Yeah, I guess so, Dad." But now I'd love to have that photo. That would be on my social media because it's the great. They're right. You know, they're moments in your life, and
when you look back at that time. But also as well as being in and around the squad. I mean, obviously you were down when you got your injury as well. So
the greatest time though.
Yeah. What did it add? 3 Lions, the track. What did it add to the whole feeling?
Well, do you know what, Geoff? We got the squad together, and this is coming from a typical footballer point of view because the presser, Michelle Farrer, her name was. She's a presser. She was a lovely lady, Michelle.
My friend lives in St Albans.
Great. She's amazing at her job, and she used to put up with our nonsense, and
she's like Mother Hen who would look after the players.
But if
poor girl,
your days are England are pretty boring, so you don't have to do a lot. I mean, apart from at times, I think McManaman Stevie Mack and Robbie Fowler and I, we would babysit Gaza. They were playing tennis, or it was a beautiful summer. I don't know if you remember. Euro 96, the most amazing summer. And she said, Michelle said, we're doing a song for the Euros. And we're like, the Lightning Seeds are going to do it, and Badil and Skin. I know Badil and Skin, and obviously we all loved, the programme.
Fantasy Football,
great show. And we were like, we don't want to do that. And they go, right, well, you're going to do it. Teddy Sheringham, I think's in it. I think Robbie Fowler, Steve McManaman, and myself. So Robbie Fowler and Stevie got picked. And they said, do you want to go as long as well, Jamie? And I was like, yeah, I might as well. Be a bit of a laugh. What else? Nothing else to do. No, I had no idea about. I'd not heard. I'm not going to lie. I know, of course, I know who they are now. They were a great band, the Lightning Seeds, but they weren't really my type of music at the time. So we're going to be in the video. All we're thinking about, how long is this going to last? What are we doing this for? And then now you're thinking, I'm so pleased I was in that video, and there's still now for that song to be played, and couldn't quite get the beat of it. Is coming up, but even then it was like that didn't really feel too big a song. And then gradually you were like, whoa. And then after about a week, we kept hearing it. And by the end of it, it was unbelievable. I'll never forget so I got injured against Scotland. I came on and got injured. And then by the time we got to beat Spain, the momentum, and Terry used to do these videos on Terry Venables, bless him, greatest guy, brilliant manager.
Brilliant singer.
So just as we were getting to Wembley, the streets, thousands, and I mean it, like thousands of people. And then Terry would put on a video showing, unfortunately I was injured, but they said to me, do you want to leave the squad after the Scotland game? And I went, I ain't leaving. This is the best stag do I've ever been on. I was having such a great laugh. All my mates playing football. I was 20. Where am I going that's any better than this, So I stayed for the duration and just loved being part of it. But I'll never forget the just sort of 5-10 minutes before we got to Wembley, Terry would put this sort of motivational, and it would show Shearer scoring a goal, Sheringham making one, McManaman running down the wing, or Anderton, or Tony Adams crunching into tackle, David Seaman making a great save, with this song on in the background. And everyone, when I think about, you asked me the question earlier on about a song, that makes the hairs on the back of my head stand up. And even though I wasn't playing, that was one of those iconic moments in my life. And I was like, wow, I'm just so proud to be part of this squad. And you're representing your country. There's only 1,500 people that have ever done it probably now, maybe a few more, but it's something you should be so proud of.
What effect did listening to at Anfield in certain occasions "You'll Never Walk Alone" have on you?
Even does now. Even does now. "You'll Never Walk Alone" is something that I have to be honest, I had no idea before I signed there what it, the timing of the song. As you came out, when that plays, you could genuinely, it used to lift you and make you feel 10 feet tall, and you could visually see other teams going, oh my goodness, and then they'd Never Walk Alone and come on, and then you come out and the crowd would just explode. It was with a wall of noise, but it's a beautiful song. It's got so much, and especially what's happened with the history of the club, and obviously the tragedies. It just, the words are so perfect.
It is as the title, isn't it? Yeah. It's unifying. We're all in this together.
And I was very lucky. I met Jerry Marsden a few times, and he was a real gentleman. He used to come into the players' lounge, and when you think his words, his voice, I'm sure that he wrote it, but however they got to the point. I know he sang it, but it's like, wow, imagine that, having a song that means so much to millions of people, and even now will, for the next however long that Liverpool will be here forever, and that will never change. It must give him so much pride. Yeah, and even now it still makes me so the feeling of walking out as a Liverpool captain with that armband on, and you hear those words, and this is Anfield sign, you touch it, and then you go onto the pitch, and if you got a win, celebrating with the fans. Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. And I'd always walk out, hear those words, and my hair would be standing on the back of my neck. And I'd always be able to know exactly where my parents were. And even now, talking about it makes me a bit emotional. If my dad was there, or my brother, whoever, if he wasn't playing. So yeah, it's it's a beautiful song.
Best artist you ever heard in person, or best concert you've ever been to?
I've been to a few. If I start last couple, I went to a few. I went to watch Drake last couple of years ago with my son, and I went to watch Post Malone, Post Malone was incredible.
Why?
Like just that because I've always liked him. I love his music, and he's obviously there's a lot of darkness in his music, but also so talented. He's a great lyricist, and he was just like blew us all away because Charlie, my older boy, loves really into his music. So we'd watched Drake about 3 weeks before, and then we saw Post Malone. I think it shocked us because he was a better performer on the night, and was just so powerful, and the way that he sung, I thought that was unbelievable. I've watched Michael Jackson. I watched Elton John last year. On his tour.
The Yellow Brick Road tour.
Unbelievable. Because I've always loved Elton John. Your song is one of my favourite songs ever. Although I like to think of myself as a bit of a hip hop boy, that's one of my. That was one of those. Whenever I hear that song, it just makes me feel. It makes me think of my mum and dad, and all lovely things in your life. It's a beautiful song. I've seen Beyonce. I love going to concerts. I went to a few. I went to one in Liverpool as well, which probably nearly got me banned from playing football. We went to watch Steve McManaman and Robbie Fallon went to watch Cypress Hill, and we ended up we had a box. It was in a beautiful arena, like a venue in Liverpool. But as you can imagine, with Cypress Hill, there was a lot of weeds being smoked, and we absolutely. By the time we got, and no matter how many times, I don't smoke. I've never smoked. So, but I reckon I'd had 5 joints by the end of it, and it was in my hair. And the next morning I went to training. I had about 8 showers, couldn't get rid of the smell. I remember saying to Steve McMahon and Robbie Fallon, God, if we got tested today, we'd be in big trouble. But it was So I've always enjoyed going to concerts. I saw Luther Vandross, as I say, because I loved Luther many years ago as well. So a lot of great concerts.
What are you listening to now?
So as we speak now, today I listen to I like Dave, and there's a really good song right now by Jack Harlow and Dave called it's called Advice or something. Giving me too much advice. It's a great song, like so clever.
Do you particularly like rap because it speaks to you? That's the thing about rap.
I'm always like my wife now. We always talk because I've got my memory isn't great. I like things, as you well know. I like things that I like. I don't know what the technical. Someone could probably analyse me for this. But if I'm into something, I'm all in. Like I'm into football, I'm all in, and I always have been. I'm into golf, I'm all in. With music, I have to listen to the words. I can't hear if there's a couple of words in the song where the song doesn't make sense. I don't like it. I have to listen to the words first, and then the beat, and then I can remember. Once I listen to a song a few times, I can remember all the words, and I've got that sort of photographic memory on songs, but on nothing else that I can't remember. It's quite weird. But I've always loved, when they say if you'd like doing a Luther Vandross song or Rapper's Delight, I can remember all the words, and I've always been like that. So if I hear a song that I like, it's the words first that get me, and then I like obviously the beat after.
If you could have written any song in your life, what would it have been?
God, anything from the Beatles would be a billionaire. But I'd have to say, and I said it to you earlier, I love your song is the words.
Beautiful song.
Yeah, beautiful song, And you can tell anybody this is your song, things like that. It's just such beautiful words.
You mentioned earlier as well that you went across and spoke to Luther, and you told us that amazing story how Robbie Williams came and hid out at your place in Liverpool.
But it's only today that because at the time I've never really spoken about it because I didn't want to, I see Robbie a lot. I was at a dinner a few weeks ago. One of our friends had a party, and I was sat next to him. We were like, "Wow, can you remember that?" And he's like, "Madness,"
Over the years, not just through Sky and through Liverpool and League of Their Own, have you encountered many musicians, and any of them have made an impression upon you, good or bad, that you've met and you thought, "Wow, what a guy."
I'd say one thing, League of Their Own has obviously been great to do, great for me. I ended up doing, De La Soul. I did a rap with De La Soul on League of Their Own.
Trust me, I've seen it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, it wasn't the best.
Yeah,
but I'm still there. And one of them obviously passed away a while ago. But to do, I was a big De La Soul fan in my Bournemouth days. We used to listen to 3 Feet High and Rising, which was an incredible album. So when I get the opportunity and someone says De La Soul are in town, do you want to rap with them? I'm like, yeah, I don't care how stupid and how white I look. I'm into this. I'm in. And they were great. They just completely got it. And we had such a good laugh. And it was lovely to do.
Any others over the years?
Well, if I could have met anybody.
No, if you come across them, you met, it might not even be your type of music. I always love the Brian Clough quote. Sinatra, he's another one. He met me.
Yeah, no. But do you know what? Yeah, there's so that's the thing with football, and especially when you play for a club like Liverpool, you end up meeting so many different, singers and musicians, and when you travel, it's trying to, like Dave, Stormzy. People like you go to events, you go to a watch event or something like that, and your next thing I'm stood there and I'm talking to Stormzy or Dave, and they're like such great normal guys, and all they want to do is more like they want to talk about Man United. I know Stormzy and Dave, the big man, and I want to just talk about music and what they're up to now. So the worlds collide so much when it comes to music, and I think especially. With probably maybe myself, when I start talking about how much I love listening to hip hop music and to rap music, I think it's sort of that's quite I think it surprises people. But I think John Barnes as well. John was my hero growing up, and when we were at Liverpool, we used to go to there was a place in Wigan that used to get all the imported music in, so we'd go down and get our CDs from there.
So you used to go and get the CDs.
So we used to go to get so the Continental was a nightclub. So John's best mate was a guy called Charlie C, and he was a DJ in the Conti. So all the good music that would come out, we'd go there, and there was like at the time there was a couple of like, sort of underground hip hop, some like there's this band called Brand Nubian. They had a few albums that had come out, and just all the new bits that you couldn't get anywhere else. Like you couldn't go into HMV and get it. So they used to they'd bring up John, and so John and I used to just go over, and I used to sit in the car and think, God, I'm sitting with my hero here, driving to get some like CDs from some place in Wigan. It was just madness. But that's how our friendship, John was here the other day. Our friendship really probably, evolved as much because I had my admiration as a footballer and we played midfield together. It was off the field talking about music. And that was always our common theme. Like have you heard that they've got an album coming out this week or whatever? We got to go and get this. And then we'd have a bit of lunch. And we just became best mates. As much as football, it was music that sort of brought us together as well. I've got one more story for you. John Bishop says to me, let's go to watch Ed Sheeran. I was like, okay.
Because John used to go in the same gym as me at Bending Out Roundabout.
That's right. So we're going, all right, he's going to get tickets. I had no idea, I didn't know if we were going to see him after. Anyway, we go and watch the show. It's unbelievable. We were actually, it was like in a hotel, 3 or 4 different hotels, and you were sort of just in some hotel window.
It's in Magaluf. It's a court because I saw Rudimental at the same thing a few years later. It's like a courtyard between blocks of apartments.
That's right.
Back into Magaluf.
Yeah. So we go and watch it, and then afterwards, John says we can go and see him after. He's messaged me. I was like, oh, amazing. So we go down to see him. And he was unbelievable, so talented. And also, when you meet him, again, a bit like meeting like people that you admire. And by that time, I'm watching this guy. He's got a mic stand, and he's got this amazing machine that I've never seen before, which is making the beat for him. And he's sort of going between his laptop and this thing. All of a sudden, he's creating like a hip hop soul beat, whatever it is. Never seen it. It was like unique. So we have a couple of beers. We have a couple more beers, and he goes, right, where are we going? And I'm like, this is music to my ears. It's, I'm all in. Where are we going? Come on, Ed. Bish is up for it. I've got a couple of my mates at the time were there. So we end up going into Porta Patel's, which is obviously a place that we frequented quite a few times.
Did you go to Ritz's?
Went to Ritz's. So we're up there. It's brilliant. We've got to listen to music. At the time, I had a house in Mallorca. So he said, hey, we've got to go. Let's carry on. This is brilliant. I go, everything's shut. He said, but you can come back to mine. I've got a few beers there and, a bit of whatever, a bit of wine. And he said, yeah, let's go. And I'm like, oh my God, Ed Sheeran's come back to my house. This is great. So we get back and now we're kicking on. It's like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, start listening to music. And it got to about 6, right? And Charlie, my elder boy.
Yeah, the boys were really young, I remember.
Really young. He said he came downstairs. He said, Dad, I couldn't believe it. You and Ed Sheeran, arm in arm, and you've got MTV on singing Luther Vandross. he said, "Oh, can't believe," but we're two of us, we're drunk. We've had a right few drinks, but we've had such a nice night, such a good laugh. I think he ended up sleeping on the sofa. I can't remember. I remember sleeping outside. It was a lovely hot day. Just fell asleep somewhere. But like having those like moments with someone like now, who is the biggest, I can't believe I've just brought this story up right at the end, Geoff, but it was like one of those mad stories. But he was unbelievable. And because again, it's that crossover between football. Who would have thought he's now, one of the, heavily involved at Ipswich. But he was such a great laugh and so cool. And as I say, the common theme in all of this is Luther, because he was always had such a big part in my life. And the two of us were just singing it. We're like as I'm sitting here, we're like, unbelievable. So fun.
Brilliant. Thanks, bud.
Well done, mate. Top
Thanks,
man.
bud.